What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ, Bucky, Rhett with you. I am, if you're watching this, you can see I'm coming to you live from the Marriott Courtyard League sponsor in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. A little bit of a road trip here. How about the wall art back here, by the way, though? Huh, guys? You like that? We're classing it up a little bit here. Yeah, it's nice. We've got a lot of ground to cover today. We're gonna go through a bunch of games, but I do want to start out with a sad state of affairs, and that is the situation with Bucky and my alma maters. Was not a good week. It was not a good week. I was up there in Boone for the first time in forever. South Alabama put it on us. I owe Jim Nagy, the executive director of the Reese's Senior Bowl, at dinner because he was in on the South Alabama action. So that hurt, baby. But yeah, he ran all over him. And then as tough as that was for me, feeling bad for myself, wallowing in that, I happened to see a score, and I thought that basketball season had started in Chapel Hill, and apparently it isn't. That was a football game, and that was James Madison. Bucky, you gave up a 70 burger to James Madison?
Oh, DJ. Oh, okay, so like I got to tell you, one, I knew the Tar Heels were playing, but I thought it was a little later. So when I got to turn on the game, I see 53 to whatever, but it's like the second quarter, and I'm like, "There's no way
that is that possible."
Like, is there, like, I'm like, there must be a glitch on the lower third. There's no way that this is like the score, and then they replay the highlights. And the quarterback is going bananas. And yeah, it was a tough day. And, you know, I thought about Rhett in that instance because I know Indiana's coach had kind of come from JMU. And I was like, I thought he took all his people with him. And I'm trying to figure out why JMU is over here busting the clock on my poor Tar Heels, who had beaten the 49ers. That it just didn't make sense based on. Yeah, I couldn't understand what was going on.
I think it was Holy Cross's coach that ended up taking the job at James Madison. He's a really good coach. I mean, that program is had been in real good shape, obviously. But yeah, I don't really know what you guys are talking about with all the following. Yeah,
I know. I use a football school. I know. Yeah. I know. But this is how I'm going to make it up to those, because I think there's a lot of crossover. I know from talking to people, but there's a lot of people who are Carolina fans or App fans that are big Panther fans. And this is not in the show. We're not supposed to talk about this game because we have all these other games we got to hit. This is not a marquee game, but I'm going to start off and just give them their flowers. Hey, I said it was one of the worst rosters I've ever seen. We went off on the Panthers, how bad they were. They changed quarterbacks. And this is the number all you need to know. The first two games, we weren't imagining it. They had 3 explosive pass plays. 3. In the game against the Raiders, they had 9 with Andy Dalton, which just showed the power of playing on time, what that could do for an offense. So I do want to say congratulations to the Carolina Panthers fans. I know a bunch of you are mad at us because of how hard we went at you, but I do not apologize for that because it was atrocious, what we watched the first couple weeks. So congratulations on that big win over the Raiders. Okay, let's get back to the regular scheduled programming. We have the Rams with a huge win over the 49ers. You could say a season-saving win, Buck. When you take this one in, the way they're able to finish that ball game, what was your biggest takeaway?
Biggest takeaway is Matthew Stafford continued to do impressive stuff. And I think his special values extend beyond the stat sheet. Like his ability to hang in there, his ability to kind of take a cast of unheralded playmakers and kind of find a way to figure it out. You got to love that about the Rams. And I would say this, man, for a team that is beat up and banged up as they have been, they just find a way to kind of get nice performances from those who are played. And so we always talk about this league being a developmental league where the coaches that can develop the young players have an advantage over the others. Man, I think it's hard to point out a better coaching staff at developing their young players than the LA Rams.
I would agree with that. And I do think that your point on Stafford being the glue that holds it all together is pretty important. I mean, he was the guy. I mean, you saw Sean McVay sought him out after the game, just to make sure he knew how much of a stud he was. one of the game balls afterwards. But I think Stafford is the guy that definitely holds that all together, especially on the offensive side. But I think, DJ, we got to talk about 2 young guys. One, a rookie. Yeah. Braden Fisk, I thought, played an excellent game up front for the LA Rams on the defensive side of the ball. That motor, the relentless effort, the stuff that we saw on tape at Florida State all showed up in this game. He led the team in pressures and then came up, like on a number of those pressures, he gets in there and then Purdy makes a phenomenal move to escape the pocket and actually has like a chunk play. But that one right there, that third down with a minute left where Fisk finally kind of got home and was able to prevent Purdy getting out of the pocket and scrambling for a first down that might have gotten them closer as they were trying to get down into field goal range there. I thought that was huge. And then it got the Rams the ball back. They went down and kicked the field goal. The other one I'd say, and I know you're going to talk about this too, Deej, but Tutu Atwell. I mean, yeah. I think we're also seeing the power of, Tutu's explosive speed when you can put him on the move and get him going at the snap, like in its man coverage, trouble, especially when he's crossing the field like he was on a number of those first down catches that he had. I mean, that was fun to watch them find a way to use and accentuate his skill set.
Yeah, one of the things that I do on these Mondays, guys, is you're at a game, Bucky's at a game, Rhett, you're sometimes traveling back from college games, so I'm trying to just I don't see the game, so I'm going to pull up the numbers and then look and see what speaks to me from the numbers, and that dictates what I'm going to study and what I'm going to watch. And you don't know how happy I was. I was like, Tutu's there, baby. Yes, let's get that college report. Let's fire that thing up. Dust that thing off. It's been hidden in a drawer, but nice to see that one come to life. But watching the tape, one of the things that was fascinating, Buck, the creativity of McVay. I had never seen this before. Maybe, Buck, if you've seen it, teams you've played on or what have you, but just utilizing motion in a different way. They use Atwell almost like on an elevator screen in basketball, where you've got the two wide receivers, and then he motions, he splits the wide receivers and then gets out into his route. I was like, this is fantastic. I just love when you're watching stuff every week and you're like, okay, I don't remember really seeing much of that, but it's just a way, and I don't even know how much it impacted the DBs. It didn't look like it really helped him, like in terms of getting them through the wash. But if nothing else, like it keeps it fun and fresh, and there's just some new wrinkles sprinkled in there with McVay. And before you get to that one, the other side of it, I wanted to hit on. You guys talked about Stafford being the glue. The only reason that I will argue for McVay is that I just can't get out of my head. We think about all these changing pieces that they've had. I can't get out of my head of Baker Mayfield showing up on a Tuesday and winning a game on a Thursday. And so that's when I give McVay a lot of credit for whatever he's given and however he makes it work. He just figures out what guys can do, puts them in a situation to be successful.
Yeah, no, DJ, it's funny because you talk about Matthew Stafford wanted to give his flowers. I don't know if you checked the mentions on X. They were talking about how could you just so dismissively put Brock Purdy ahead of Matthew Stafford. Well, let's talk about Brock Purdy. Because Brock Purdy was phenomenal in his own right. 22 of 30, 292, 3 touchdowns. And look, I know the Niners paid a lot of money to Brandon Ayuk. Maybe some of that money should have gone to Juwan Jennings. Juwan Jennings was going bananas, 175 yards on 11 catches and making play after play, like really picking up where he left off in the Super Bowl. And for a Niners team, which is kind of in a weird spot, right? One of the things that we worried about for them was the Super Bowl hangover and how they would cope with losing, particularly when everyone, after you have that kind of success, everyone has kind of got in there. They have their hand out, wanting to be paid and compensated for what they've done. I just feel like this team is kind of at a crossroads where they got to figure out who they are, what they're about, and if they can put all of that stuff behind them and really focus on the task at hand. Because to drop, I would say like 2 games that maybe we on the outside we didn't think they would drop. They're sitting at 1-2, and I don't know if any of us had them sitting at 1-2 at this point of the season.
I think it's the most surprising, development so far in the year. If you'd have told me the Niners would be sitting here at 1-2, now obviously there's injuries there, they're missing some pieces, but nonetheless, definitely a surprise where the Niners are. Let's move on to the next game, guys. Baltimore, Dallas. Cowboys are always going to grab the headlines. It's always going to be a slant for what's wrong with them as opposed to what's right with the other team. But man, to me, Derrick Henry's where I started with this one. Obviously, you look at the numbers, and I wanted to dig into that and see what those runs look like. And it was a lot of what we thought coming into the year, which was benefiting from the threat of Lamar as a runner. And obviously, Lamar did his thing rushing the ball as well. But Lamar, there's one explosive run where he's able to hold Parsons just for a count because he has to account for Lamar if he pulls the ball. And then that's that backside defender who would normally make that play on Derrick Henry, and he's just a count late to get there. So you end up getting a big run. Then you have unbalanced looks, and he's able to run to the short side on some of those. There's just not enough guys. And then he's one stiff arm away from popping a long run. And then they mixed in, some downhill runs to go along with some of the stretch that they ran. So I thought it was a creative run game. I thought it was what we envisioned the run game could look like with Derrick Henry. And Lamar, obviously, Rhett was a tremendous compliment to what they were doing on the ground.
Yeah, a couple of things on that run game. I mean, 10 explosive plays in the run game to 0 for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
So a shutout, and then double digits on that front from the Ravens. I thought the way they used the pre-snap, the motion, I thought was really interesting in this one. I think 6 out of 10 of those explosive plays, they had motion going across the formation, and it really affected the second level alignment of the Cowboys, where they were really shifting out to wherever that motion was going. And then more often than not on those 6 plays, that's where they were running, taking advantage of those angles that was creating and running away from the motion. So that was obviously working really well. And then, they ran I left 28 toss, right, with 21 personnel or 12 personnel. I mean, like, just some stuff just simple. We're going to be better than you. And they were on a couple of those. I mean, they got in 13 at 3 tight ends. They ran to the weak side. The other thing that was really fun was the fake jet sweep QB power. Like, that to me is lethal, right? You've got Zay Flowers coming over, and is widening that edge. And then you get Lamar following a pulling guard. That's trouble. That's trouble for defense. And it was late in the game against the Cowboys.
You know, what I love about the Baltimore Ravens is when their back's against the wall, they always go back to who they are and their identity. The fact that you can look at the stat sheet and see 45 runs, 274 rushing yards, it just tells me that they know who they are. It's just sometimes I think they get distracted by trying to be one of the cute teams in the league. When they line up with a 2-time NFL rushing champion and a 2-time MVP who is known for breaking ankles with his legs, when they lean into that, it makes them one of the scariest teams in the league. And when you watch the game plan, it was a mix of what they used to do with some new stuff and some creative motions or whatever. But at the end of the day, the Baltimore Ravens lined up and socked the Dallas Cowboys in the mouth. And if they continue to take that approach with the rest of the teams on their schedule, look, they're going to be the same team that we always talk about being one of the final ones in the tournament. And the way they utilize a little under center running game to mix in some play action passing game, that is the way, in my mind, that Lamar Jackson should be utilized. 12 or 15 as a passer, 182 yards, 1 touchdown to go with what he added on the ground, which was almost 100 yards. To me, that's the perfect balance, because if you look at their team, their best 2 players are Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry on offense. You sprinkle in some Zay Flowers, and away they go. This offense can still punch you in the mouth. They just need to commit to being that bully ball team that we saw on Sunday.
Real quick on the other side of it, Buck, with the Cowboys, I'm not freaked out about it. I mean, that's a unique challenge with what Baltimore does. And you had an 0-2 Ravens team. You knew they were going to come out punching. And to have the variety that they have offensively, it's not something you see on a weekly basis. Mike Zimmer still, it's just game 3 with this defense. I just, coming out of the game, what surprised me is there's urgency, right? Good. There's being angry with the way that you played, which I'm okay with that. But then there's like that line of panic, and almost with all the comments coming out of there that you see after that game, and you see the sideline stuff taking place here with CeeDee Lamb. You hear Micah Parsons and Dak after the game. I don't want to use the word panic, but man, it was if it hadn't arrived at that destination, it was within sight.
Yeah, like I think it's different. Like when you look at the Cowboys, because look, man, I think this team, obviously, like, they get a lot of hype about them because it's the Dallas Cowboys. But I think when we realistically look at their roster and what they are, sometimes it plays out like that. They don't have a running back that scares anybody. So to think that their running game is going to be dynamic, it would be on the shoulders of an offensive line. But that offensive line is young. And defensively, they're still trying to figure it out with Mike Zimmer. But the one thing we know in the league, if you show vulnerabilities where you cannot stop the run, well, guess what? You're going to get a steady dose of each and every week until you show that you can stop it, the running game. And so they need to figure out how to stop it with their discipline and physicality, or they're going to get more teams coming right downhill at them and trying to punch them in the mouth.
Yeah. That's where it is. Go ahead, Rhett.
I was just saying on the, as the Ravens are trying to take advantage of that, I mean, like using all 3 of their tight ends. Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kohler. It's not just Mark Andrews, right? Especially when they're running the football. I think Isaiah Likely has kind of proven he's pretty good blocker out there, and he made a couple of nice ones that helped spring some of those runs. So yeah, they got to figure out how to deal with some of that heavy personnel, and not just from a scheme standpoint, but from a hey, like enough's enough standpoint.
No question. Let's stay inside the NFC East. Let's go from the Cowboys to the Eagles. This look, it's week 3, but it almost felt like a must-win game for the Philadelphia Eagles. They're 1-1 coming into that game, but the talk was so toxic, and everybody's on Nick Sirianni. Like, it was just this felt like, man, this could be a buzzsaw you run into with a Saints offense that had just been dynamic and explosive. And here you go, you come into this game, you only give up 12 points against an offense that was humming like nobody else in the league. So a much needed win for the Philadelphia Eagles. Kind of a grimy game. The one takeaway I had when I was looking at the box score, obviously you knew Saquon had a big day, but Goddard at 10 for $170. And when I went in and watched that, you see a combination of they'll give him some screens. You see some deep crosses. You saw the route right here. He's got some wide receiver route savvy for a guy who's like 260 pounds. He's a big dude who's got some actual route savvy. And they used the big play they hit was a mesh concept where you actually had 3 Saints. I believe this is it that you're looking at right here. There's 3 Saints that collide into one another. And I know Buck, from someone who has, and Rhett, you might even, I know you've done this at the Manning camp, not to success, but I know you have coached some flag football. But the Buck, from when you're a little kid, from when you're coaching toddlers to when you're coaching all the way up at the NFL level, mesh is fantastic. It's like undefeated. So you're going to get one of those a game.
You're going to get one of those Keystone Cops moments where guys bump into each other because it requires so much communication. Everyone being on the same page, how you're going to play it. And the thing about like the Eagles, and I would say this is probably the tougher game because they gave away a game on Monday. So you're still emotional about that. They're trying to kind of scratch and claw their way through it. Jalen Hurts throws an interception in the red zone, in the end zone, that really crushes the drive. And they were able to dig their way through it. To me, it's encouraging because of the resilience and determination that they displayed, because this was not an easy game for them, particularly taking on a Saints team that had been red hot. But they found a way through it. And the other thing, the investment in Saquon Barkley is worth its weight in gold for this offense, because no matter what goes down, they always can lean on the running game. And that's not always the luxury that they've been afforded in the past based on the personnel they had in the backfield behind Jalen Hurts.
So from the Saints' perspective here, guys, this was a game that, like, if you'd have told me some of the mistakes that Philly made, I was like, oh, Saints blew them out. At home? Are you kidding me? You throw an intercept. Jalen, throws the interception you're talking about. Saints end up punting it on that drive. They fumble. The Eagles do on their next possession. The Saints punt on that drive. Second half, Philly turns it over on downs. The Saints punt after getting that turnover on downs. Next possession, they block a punt. Like anytime you block a punt at the Superdome in New Orleans, it's summoning visions of Steve Gleason and, 20 years ago. And then they turn it over on downs after that block punt. The Saints had so many opportunities to put the Eagles in a really bad spot, right? It felt like frustration was getting to a fever pitch, on the sideline there. You could see it in Jalen Hurts' eyes. Offense wasn't clicking. They weren't putting points on the board, but their defense kept keeping them in it. And the Saints couldn't figure out a way to kind of put the foot on the throat. And man, I'm telling you, at the Superdome in New Orleans, when defense is making plays like that, forcing turnover on downs, you block a punt, that place is ready to explode. And then the offense, the complementary football aspect of this one, just wasn't able to come through for them.
All right, it's time for Cruising to Victory, presented by Royal Caribbean, a team that was on a nice cruise, maybe a little shuffleboard on the deck for the Seattle Seahawks, as they just smashed a Tua Tagovailoa-less Miami Dolphins squad 24-3. Just a complete suffocating defense by Coach McDonald there, and what he's put together, combined with John Schneider, the roster that he's built. I mean, I think we start there, guys. This was a 6-sack performance by this defense. This is going through and looking at the sacks. I was fascinated to see Derek Hall show up there with 2, and people don't remember Derek Hall. He's a 37th pick. Yeah, that's exactly right. Ran 4.55 coming out. Wrote it down on my paper. And you look at Boye Mafe, was a big-time tester. I think they have one of the most explosive fronts with a lot of depth too. They can roll guys through there. But Buck, they've done a nice job of building a roster that matches the scheme, which is not usually something you see when you have a first-year head coach come in. I think they hired a coach that matches what the personnel they already had on campus.
Yeah, kind of a brilliant move, right? Like you go and get someone who not only is a terrific tactician, but a guy who I think his collegiate experience benefited him because he's able to make the complex very simple. He's able to really teach a scheme that has a lot of nuance to a bunch of different guys who have different levels of experience in the NFL. But then he is able to take their most dynamic players and put them in a position to make plays. To me, it's not a reincarnation of the best days of Pete Carroll's era, but it reminds me of that, like how they're growing and dominating and the emotional maturity that this team displayed and knocking out a team that didn't have a chance with a quarterback. They did not waste time. They put it on their defense, and their defense responded in spectacular fashion. Really good Seahawks team, and I think, man, it's time for us to talk about them as one of the better teams in the NFC.
Yeah, they're rocking and rolling, certainly. And then, on the flip side for me, after talking about the Rams in our opening segment and how they have figured out ways to win, right, when their backs are against the wall in terms of personnel, right, when their best guys are out. I feel like it's time to start seeing that from the Dolphins with however long that Tua Tagovailoa is going to be out. Like they've got, we're talking about the run game that we've given them a ton of credit for, and rightly so. Like we got to find a way to see some of that, right? And I know a lot of that credit goes to Mike McDonald and his defense there in Seattle, but with Achane and with Jeff Wilson and Jalen Wright, I mean, like they've got plenty of guys that can get out there and get it done. And that creativity that we talk about with Mike McDaniel in the run game, I feel like that needs to be what is going to sustain the Miami Dolphins here moving forward. And we just did not see that at all in this game, which put too much of it on Skylar Thompson. And then obviously he got banged up in the game too. So I'm be curious to see what kind of shape this Dolphins offense takes moving forward.
Yeah, and then the last thing on this game, going back to the Seahawks offensively, nice to see DK Metcalf getting involved in some big plays. They ran it was like almost like a dig and go. Like he gave a couple steps to the dig and then put the foot on the gas and got vertical. So that downfield, that stretch you horizontally as well as vertical offense from Coach Grubb that we saw at the University of Washington, he's taking the same thing. I think some people, can you run this system the same way at the NFL level? I don't know. To my naked eye, it sure looks like it's working. And Gino's been able to capitalize on that down the field. So a great start for the Seattle Seahawks, off to 3-0 beginning here to the 2024 season. Man, I'll tell you what, from a Chargers perspective, as we get to this next game against Pittsburgh, hats off to the Pittsburgh Steelers. That is a huge win for them. That is as good as I've seen Justin Fields play in the NFL. He was outstanding with the way that he played. And this is a Steelers team and I'll get to the Chargers in a second. Steelers team had 14 yards rushing in the first half. So it was kind of on Justin. Now they popped some runs in the second half, so the numbers look better there. But man, the takeaway from me on this is this was going to be a rock fight. It was going to be a really physical matchup. And man, the Chargers, just from an injury standpoint, got decimated. Joey Bosa plays 2 plays in this game, and he's out. Rashawn Slater goes out with it. I guess they said it was a pec injury. Herbert obviously goes out with the ankle. Joe Alt goes out with I believe was a knee injury. Like they were dropping like flies. They had so many key players go out of this ball game. So that's the Charger thing. They got to figure out what's going on if they can get those guys healthy. But Rhett, when you look at this game, I just came away thinking it's over. I mean, the conversation is Russell going to be healthy? Does Russell get? Oh, yeah. I mean, he goes out for captains. I'm at the game. You're watching it. It's bizarre to see. Really, the backup quarterback trot out there for captains. He's got a C on his chest. You can't put him in there. The way the Fields is playing right now, that's over. Like you're rolling with Justin Fields right now.
And look, you don't know the severity of the injury here, but I think he's at this point will have missed more time now than when the injury initially happened in terms of working his way back into practice. So yeah, at this point, I don't know how you could say, all right, we're 3-0, right? We're doing everything we want to do as the Pittsburgh Steelers to win football games. How could you possibly then put Russell Wilson, back in here? Look, I mean, they haven't been, they had that the 55-yard Calvin Austin touchdown was obviously the big play of the day as you're watching here. I mean, they haven't been overly productive through the air, but like they're doing exactly they're
That's how
following
they
the
play.
Mike Tomlin blueprint. That's it.
That's it. That they're reading the script and he's saying the lines. Like he's been given the script and he's nailing his lines. He might not win an Oscar, but that's literally he's executing the script.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
and then
like I think this is
defense. But
yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
I was just saying on defense.
Finish.
On defense, like to have Herbig there with Highsmith and Watt, and Herbig gets the two side. And obviously they're feasting, once the tackles go out too. And so I know the Chargers are in a tough spot there. But man, that defense is as good of a closer in these type of situations in close games, I think, as any in the league.
And I'm sure we'll talk about this later in the week, DJ, when it comes to quarterbacks, because we saw a couple of reclamation projects show up. And it's one of the reasons why we talk about like your draft grades and understanding the player and how you project them. And that's why guys will kick the tires. And that's why Bryce Young had immediate trade interest when the Carolina Panthers dispatched him, because sometimes a new environment can bring about new results. You just need a different voice, a different scheme, or just different supporting cast to allow you to elevate. The thing that I love about Mike Tomlin and the Steelers, they know exactly who they are. And when they brought Justin Fields in, they didn't ask Justin Fields to be something different. They didn't ask him to go win the entire game. This is a team that is driven by their defense, and they need a manager plus at quarterback. And I think we talked about this in the summer. The Steelers' recipe for success has always been defense, running game, and then magical quarterback play when they need it. And Justin Fields gives them magic in a different way. Not Ben Roethlisberger caliber magic, but the ability to run the ball like he's able to do on that zone read, sub power read, or however you want to utilize him, just adds a dimension to their offense that gives the defense something else that they have to prepare for. Look, I don't know how long they can sustain it with, scoring 20 or fewer points, but I do know as long as that defense is playing at a high level, if he doesn't mess it up, they're going to win a lot of games.
Yeah, and I'll give to kind of put a bow on the Steelers, give them credit too. I mean, they've been hit with injuries along that offensive line. When Isaac Samalo's not out there, fortunately, Troy Fautanu, their rookie first rounder, he's going to be gone for the year. Herbig's brother on the offensive side of the ball, offensive line, he's done. So they've lost some pieces, and they found a way to still, make it work and be true to who they are. All right, let's get to the Minnesota Vikings game. Went over the Houston Texans. This is a Vikings team defensively. Buck, I think we start there. Some guys, and I'm not saying that Coach Flores can't ever be a head coach again, but some guys just thrive in a certain role and a position. And as a defensive coordinator, he's really, really good, man. And they've got good personnel. They stomped the Houston Texans 34-7. Sam Darnold had another great game with the 4 touchdowns, but to me, this was about what they did defensively, including Jonathan Greenard in the get-back game, the team he played with last year, going out there, racking up 3 sacks after having 12.5 with Houston last year. They dominated defensively in this game.
So here's the thing, and DJ, one of the things that I love about it, and Brett, we had a chance, I think we went to Minnesota last training camp and had an opportunity to see Brian Flores at work. DJ, I can tell you, one of the best teachers that I've seen in terms of like being able to take scheme and convey it to his players and give them different tools and techniques to be able to thrive. This defense is a well-constructed defense that blends intelligence with the level of physicality and toughness that you love to see. And what they did to the Houston Texans, they not only confused the quarterback, but they beat the Houston Texans up. And they laid a blueprint that other teams should try to follow, because the physicality that they displayed in this game is absolutely the level of physicality that you need to bring against a Texans team that has skilled players galore. So if you can't match their skill, you got to make it a fist fight, a street fight. And the Minnesota Vikings were all about a street fight.
Yeah, and I would say there's definitely some guys, along that offensive line for the Texans that would like to play a little bit better moving forward against that type of competition. Kenyon Green, don't think got a particularly great day in pass protection, but just getting back to your point on the Vikings defense, I mean, the way that they utilize their quote unquote safeties, right? I think Josh Metellus was a guy we talked about a lot last year as kind of a jack of all trades. Right, move him anywhere, everywhere, and he's just a guy that makes plays for them. Cam Bynum, I think, has been playing some good football too. And then looking at what Harrison Smith here, as the wily vet that continues. I mean, plays 52 snaps in this game and is one of their best defenders on the field. Like to have that, I think, is invaluable for this defense that does ask a lot of things from a lot of different guys, right? I mean, it's complex. It's not just get up there and run our scheme. So I think they all kind of figure it out. You know, another one that we talked about a little bit that's kind of an under the radar free agent signing. Obviously, they gave big money to Grenard, but Andrew Van Ginkel coming over from the Miami Dolphins has provided.
Oh, we're
ABG.
Nice we're ABG fan club over here. Come on, man. We're all about ABG over here. He's a stud.
He is.
No, that was big time. And man, I'll tell you what. When I always look at defensive coordinators and I see how many times can you get your best rushers on tight ends or backs. Flores does it a lot with how he manipulates things, with who he brings and where he sends them from. And just look. Backers on backs equals sacks has been a phrase that's been around for a very long time, and it still rings true, as you could see in that ball game. All right, let's get through another one here. Let's go through KC in Atlanta. This was a game that was very, very tight coming down the home stretch here. The Falcons had every opportunity to win this game, Buck, but when you look at it, 8 red zone plays, you see it on the screen right there, 0 points. There's your ball game.
I feel like this is the theme of the day when we talk about teams and identities. And when their backs are against the wall, they stick to their identity. So anyone who knows Steve Spagnuolo knows when the game is on the line, you're going to get some kind of exotic pressure. They're bringing everybody. They're going to play cover zero behind it and figure it out. And DJ, in the red zone, man, they do what they do. They line up, they bring pressure, they dare you to make a play against pressure. But that final play, like, just in terms of like, Nick Bolton said it, and sometimes it's not proper to do it. He said, look, we lined up, we shifted the line. They hit us on that play before. He said, this time I just shot my gun and I made a play. And I was like, yep, because he looked like he was shot out of a cannon when he attacked Bijan Robinson. Their defense just has a belief that they are an elite level defense when they need to get stops. And it shows up time and time again. And so now, after like a year and a half of seeing them play like this, we kind of need to talk about their defense in that vein.
Oh, I'd say for sure. And then, I think it's obviously been a necessity, right? Going back to next year or last year, thinking about how different the production has been from these Patrick Mahomes led offenses. And it really kind of goes into this year too. Just looking at, you probably heard it on the broadcast with Collinsworth, was like, where is Travis Kelce? Where has Travis Kelce been? I mean, he has 110 yards receiving on the season right now. I'm kind of curious to what you guys have thought from watching that. Obviously, they had a big connection between Mahomes and Rashee Rice in this game, 10 catches, well over 100 yards. But what have you guys noticed from the Mahomes-Kelce connection thus far this season, Deej?
He's not getting any separation. And I look, I'm not going to say that he's done, but I've seen it. If you go back to all-time greats, Antonio Gates, you remember Gates like at the last year of his career. And it was like at some point in time that just kind of goes, and you just can't get the separation that you once got. So that's what it looks like to me. And they've just got other better options. I mean, Rashee Rice, like you mentioned, had a huge game, gives you more after the catch. So they've just found other ways to go with the football, and he hasn't really been involved. I mean, Mark Andrews is another one, and Mark Andrews has been somewhat of a ghost in the Ravens offense.
He was outsnapped by not only Isaiah Likely, but also Charlie Kohler. And I think a lot of that has to do with the run game emphasis, too, from the Ravens. But just on the Kelce front, like, I think you assume, though, that there's a craftiness involved here between those two guys, and that at some point they're going to find a way, to get those touches when they matter. Yeah, just haven't seen it yet.
No. By the way, I'll go, Buck, real quick before we leave on this game and wrap this little portion up here. I mean, there's always a lot of outrage against the Chiefs. They get a lot of attention. And there's always been the thought out there about calls that tend to go their way. And sometimes it's a little conspiratorial and all that. It goes over the top. This should have been a penalty on Pitts. I mean, that's probably as bad of a no call in my opinion, especially, crucial point of the game, crucial part of the field.
Body wrapping him.
I mean, yeah, that's a tough no call there, Buck.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a tough no call, but like I get all the outrage against the Chiefs, but sometimes, man, I think that's always happened in all sports. Like when the Patriots were rolling, it always appeared that they got the best call. Sometimes when you're good, the luck seems to go your way. And so teams, we can talk about it. They can talk about their call, but the Atlanta Falcons had more than enough opportunities to knock this game out and to win the game. And they just got to go win the game. Like, you had 8 chances in the red zone to go score and you couldn't get it done. So we can talk about the calls, but I would call it the resilience, the grittiness, the toughness of the Kansas City Chiefs that reign supreme. And these teams that face them have to know you got to knock the champ out. You can't let it go to the decisions. It can't go to the cards. You have to knock them out when you have an opportunity, and the Falcons have more than enough opportunity to knock them out.
By the way, for those that are actually watching the video show portion of this, not just listening to this, but you're watching it, I know that you're curious, so I'm going to ask a question. Buck, are you building Legos off to the side of the set here? What are we doing here off to the side of the camera here?
I'm trying to get like my tea right because my voice is fading. So I'm trying to get my tea right. Okay. So when we have a commercial break,
I feel you.
I can take a swig. Yeah. So I'm trying to get a little honey in my tea so I can take a swig so it won't be all scratchy and grainy the rest of the episode.
Let Buck cook, all right? Let him be.
Yeah, I know. I thought Buck was putting together the Home Alone house on like Legos off to the side. I just see his hand moving off the screen. I don't know what's going on here. I just want to make sure. I'm just curious. That's all. Just making a little tea, get the voice right. That's it. Let's say, well, hey, take a little pause here. Let's take a little pause. Let's all get our voice right. All right, we've reached the rookie portion of the show here. We like to check in on these rookies and some key matchups here. Let's get to Chicago, Indy. This is Caleb Williams. This is start number 3. You see the numbers there on the bottom of the screen, Rhett. This started out game 1, 29 pass attempts, game 2, 37, game 3, 52. And I look, and I'll get to what I saw when I broke down the tape, but let's just start there. First of all, usage. Your thoughts here with the Bears.
Too much. That's kind of the moral of the story here. Certainly couldn't get a whole lot done, outside of, when the ball was in Caleb's hands. And they still got a lot of work to do up front, I think. And so, subjecting him to pressure 52 times in a game that was pretty tight, kind of both ways. It does not feel like the formula here moving forward.
Yeah, I don't like it. I didn't like it in watching it. I feel like what happens is when they give him that many opportunities, the bad habits arise again. I feel like he ran around a little too much, and some of the spectacular plays that he made at USC, he can't replicate in Indianapolis. There's some flashes, but I would like to see an offense that is a little more constructed to balance it out. Run game, quick rhythm throws, things that are able to be delivered on time. I still feel like the Bears offense is too sandlot. And I don't think that's a sustainable thing to develop him to be the player that they want him to become down the line.
Yeah, some good news, though. There are a bunch of 3rd down, 4th down conversions. He put up, I think that's more yards than Fields threw for in any game in his Bears career. So if you just look at, that's pretty good. Most since 2016 is what Drew's telling me in my ear here. So that was impressive. Average depth of target was up, so it wasn't just taking the easy stuff. Had a couple beautiful deep balls. I thought when he was on balance, like when he had a pocket and he was on balance, I thought he delivered the ball accurately. Adunze made some nice plays, which is a good sign for them as other fellow rookie, which was good to see. The one thing, Buck, and get your final thoughts on this one. I almost feel with quarterbacks, there's that old line where they say if you see everything, you see nothing. And I almost feel like, because I'll see him work, he's working the full field at times, and he's going, and it looks like that makes it, there's too much. That's too much on him. Let's get a look pre-snap. Let's figure out what we see safeties right after the post-snap. Let's pick a side and let's work a side. It almost feels like to me that was like, it's like you see everything, you see nothing.
And maybe that explains some of the chaotic. He seems frenetic sometimes in the pocket. Like he looks left, he looks right, and it's all over the place. And DJ, maybe it is, hey, let's take it down. Even though he has the capacity to read the entire field, hey, let's start him out giving us some half field reads. Let's give him some level reads where everything crosses right in front of him. His eyes don't have to kind of leave the direction where they start. Let's try and build him up, even though we know that he has the potential to do more. Let's start him with some layups, some easy form shots. Let's see if we can get him hitting some mid-ranges before we start shooting all these 3-pointers and he's having to run around like Steph Curry.
And just quickly on that one, guys, on the flip side, Anthony Richardson struggled in this game too. 50% completion, 2 of them go for interceptions. Now, look, he had a play in this game that not many other quarterbacks can make, leading essentially like a pseudo tush push on the Jonathan Taylor touchdown on, I think it was the first one, where you're like, all right, that's a big, strong dude. But they got to figure out ways to get him some higher percentage completions. They got to figure out ways to get the ball out of his hand quick. And just to me, like getting him in a rhythm early on is something that's beneficial, especially for a player like that here into the rest of the game. But that's not winning football at the quarterback spot, but they get a win for it. And so it's their first one of the season.
Yeah, they had to have that one. Go ahead, Buck.
When you look at him, like how we rate his instinct, like just in terms of not only instincts as a passer, I worry about his instincts as a runner because he ran a couple times, Rhett, and the things that you see, and look, Lamar Jackson is a remarkable athlete, but Lamar Jackson has an innate feel for when to get down, when to avoid contact, and those things. I don't know if Anthony Richardson has that, and I think that may limit how you can utilize him in the run game because he will take some wicked shots if he doesn't learn how to duck down and get away from those big boy hits.
And DJ, I think to me, a lot of that comes down to like he's got confidence in his frame. He's got confidence in his strength and in his physicality.
So did Sam. And so did Cam. And even Cam eventually broke down.
He wore down. Yeah. I think it's a legit concern. I'm with you on that.
No, I hear both of you. Let's get to the next one here, Buck. Bo Nix, best game of his young career, aided by a defense that racked up 7 sacks, including Dontre Tillman, did I get that right? Tilria, I believe it was. I can't read my own writing. But when I was watching, I'm like, did not evaluate him.
It's Tillman.
Is it Tillman? Dontre Tillman. 2 sacks. I'm like, who is this guy? He was at IUP. So I'd have to go back through. I did not remember having watched him. So that was kudos to the scouting department there in Denver. They unearthed one there. So nicely done. But Bo Nix, Buck, running, throwing, excellent day for him.
It's kind of like the Bo Nix that we thought would show up at Denver at some point. Sean Payton has a vision for how he wants his quarterback to play. And I'll say this, like, they're similar, but they're still vastly different. But I can see why Bo Nix was the apple of Sean Payton's eye based on his success with Drew Brees. Because when I look at Bo Nix, the best of Bo Nix is a passer with outstanding athleticism that can make plays all over the field. And we saw that. And it was a very efficient game for him. And if they continue to get the contribution they got in the running game, and he distributes the ball to a multitude of wide receivers like he did, this offense can be challenging. Even though it's not dynamic and explosive, it can spread you out, dink and dunk, and complement what appears to be a really good defense.
I mean, he's just so good. He's so good at those quick throws. Like it's hard to get away from that. I mean, it comes out. I mean, like more often than not. I mean, you look at his scatter plot, right? Like his completion chart, and I mean, it is green, right, from line of scrimmage to 10 yards, and from behind the line of scrimmage to 5 yards. I mean, just littered with green dots for completions. And then obviously you start to see the incompletions, pile up as you get a little bit further down. But I think if it's working, if it's winning, just keep that rolling, and then eventually, you'd like to see a bit more of those explosive plays. But by the way, on your Dontre Tillman, this is his first game. He didn't play the first 2 weeks.
How about that?
2 sacks in his first game.
Not bad.
Coming from IUP.
Not bad. That's my homework for the week. Figure out what the heck, how I missed on that one. How I didn't know about him. Nobody told me about that guy. Unless I've got some notes somewhere tucked away, but I don't remember him. Let's get to another rookie who was awesome and has been every game, is Malik Neighbors, who's the clear number 1 target for Daniel Jones and looks every bit like a number 1 wide receiver. 2 touchdowns in this ballgame, 8 catches, 78 yards, 50-50 win down the field, going up and getting it. The change of direction and the explosiveness is elite. Buck, I always say there's like little litmus tests that I have with wideouts too. Is like, if you can catch a hitch and win out the back door after the catch, like that is like to go from dead stopped stationary to be able to then explode and wheel out the back door. Like that to me is always, I always kind of check that box of like, okay, that puts him in a select company, and he did it impressively.
He did do that impressive, but I would say the most impressive thing that he did, and I think Rhett can attest to this because it's the drill that all wide receivers do, but few of us can really execute it. The dead leg that he did in the corner of the end zone, where he is having to twist around he goes limp, puts the first toe in, and then drags the other one. I can't tell you what kind of coordination and body control that requires. You can't even think about doing that in the moment. That is some special stuff, because I know I could never pull that stuff off. And I can't imagine many that can do it, but he made it look so easy. And it goes back to the conversation that I had with Cortez Hankton leading into the draft. And he just talked about, man, this dude loves the game. He has the dog in him. It matters to him. I just see a high-level player who, I'm not saying that a wide receiver can ever be the leader of your team, but he certainly is a spark plug to this offense that makes it go.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a high rate of, catches on combat type of situations, right? Contested catches. He goes up and makes those. He's up near the top of the league in terms of yards after catch per reception, being way up there. Like, he is such a complete player, right? I mean, and that's the thing. As you were talking about the litmus test of taking a 5-yard hitch and going 50 with it, but he can also go down the sideline for 50, right? And go deep that way. So there's just nothing he can't do. I mean, and here's the other thing. Like, with a player like that, and it's a rookie, I think a lot of times, it may take some time, but I mean, this guy leads the league in targets. He's got 37 targets. Like, they keep finding ways to try to get him the football, which, I think is easier said than done sometimes on that.
Yeah, no question. He's been excellent. And really, Adunze had a good week. Marvin Harrison got in the end zone as well. All three of those guys. Talked about them being 3 of the top 5 players in the draft. And I think so far early on, the results have been excellent for those 3 rookie wideouts. Jacksonville, Buffalo, Buck, that is where you are. You got a big Monday nighter tonight. Give me the one thing that will decide this ball game.
Okay, so you have to understand, traditionally, these teams have played weird games, right? Like the Buffalo Bills, for whatever reason, the Jaguars have been a thorn in their side. 9-6 game a couple years ago. Last year in London, the Jaguars pull it off. I will say this. The Jaguars have a different level of confidence when they play the Buffalo Bills. How this game starts will really determine how the Jaguars finish the game, meaning this is a team that may be reeling from a lack of confidence after collapsing at the end of the season, starting out 0-2. They need some good stuff to happen right away. If they are able to jump out in the first quarter, you're going to see a very competitive team that can go and maybe kind of blow the doors off because they're waiting for something good to happen. However, if they get off to a slow start and Buffalo hangs something on them early, it'll be interesting to see if they're tough enough to withstand like a barrage of things that could happen on the road in a primetime contest.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of curious to see where what this Buffalo Bills team kind of continues to look like here. I think there's just a lot of intrigue again as we try to figure out, what is this really going to be the, Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox type of show, whereas Khalil Shakir has played really well, continue to step up for Josh Allen, and how much of the Bills' success again is disproportionately put on the shoulders of Josh Allen. And how sustainable is that? And I think, as we kind of continue going forward here, that's where my eyes will go.
I'm trying to figure out, Rhett, in the picture, the family picture over your shoulder, why your hip is kicked out. Like you've been, I don't know. I think that's more of a mom move than a dad move there. Just, it's a really kind of odd posturing there where you've got that hip kicked out. Do we not have enough core strength to hold the kid
on the right hip? So we're just trying to compensate there just to bring some stability to a squirming toddler at that point. Okay.
So you need the hip control.
Not a static photo. I know
it's like a shelf.
It's an image. Yeah. It's an image, but there are things that are moving as that image is happening. So just keep that in mind.
Okay. Yeah. No, just I know, like my daughter, like she's like getting ready to go out to like a school dance or something, and she wants to take a picture, and she kind of does that like hip out pose. I just thought that's what you were going with there. That's all. So I was just getting at. Let's get to the other game here. Jaden Daniels against Joe Burrow will be a fun one here, Buck. Again, same question. What's going to decide this one?
If Jaden Daniels feels a little pressure to prove to Cambridge Taylor that he has more in his game than just the simplistic reads and throws that he's been executing early. It has worked for the Commanders, making it very simple for the young quarterback. The quarterback has not turned the ball over. He's done a really good job of kind of managing the game and helping this Commanders team kind of get off to a really good start. But as the Bengals try and take away some of his pet throws, does he have another club in the bag to handle that. That is what I want to see from the young quarterback.
Jay, the other club in the bag is Terry McLaurin. Like, let's get Terry McLaurin going here a little bit, okay? I feel like he's been a forgotten man, not only just this year, but even going back to last year. Had such a great start to his career and just kind of haven't seen that productivity coming his way as much as his talent warrants it. And then obviously I'll just be counting up the points for Jaden Daniels as he tries to get me the win in our rookie draft this week.
Ooh, nice. We'll update that. We'll update that tomorrow. We'll see how that goes down. Rhett needs a win. Buck had a big win last week. See if Rhett can rebound this week. I'm looking forward to seeing Jaden Daniels run the rock. That to me is the X factor in this game. He's gonna have to run it well. I think he does run it well. I'm looking forward to watching this game. I'm actually, Buck, I'll be tuned in. I'll definitely be I'll be on the road, but I'll be listening to your game. But I think I might even be more intrigued by this one with the with the Bengals needing this, and then Jaden Daniels excited to see what he does as well. So 2 great games on Monday night. We'll have a chance to talk about those on tomorrow's episode. So we appreciate you guys hanging with us and spending some time with us on a Monday. A great weekend of football. And we'll have tonight's games recap tomorrow. Appreciate you. See you next time right here on Move the Sticks.